Hello and welcome to part 4 of the Godot tower defense tutorial. This bit was recorded after the rest of the tutorial because I watched it back and I'm not in love with it, to be honest with you. I found some of it confusing and hard to understand, so I apologise. I hope it makes some sense to you. If it doesn't, please comment below. I will do my best to respond to you and give you a solid answer. I just wanted as well to make sure that I thanked everybody for the continued support that I'm receiving for this channel. It has been amazing. I'm going to try and shoot for something a little bit optimistic. I'm going to try and say, can we reach 750 subscribers by Christmas? That would be absolutely amazing. So if you're enjoying the content, please subscribe, please like. If you're not enjoying the content, please comment, let me know what's wrong, and well, give me a thumbs down if you must, but please don't. Yeah, otherwise, here we go, getting on with it. Let me know what you think. Cheers. Hello and welcome back to part 4 of our Godot tower defense tutorial. In this part, which is going to be a doozy, we're going to be covering state patterns, path 3Ds, path follow 3Ds, all in order to create this wave of enemies here, which will spawn, travel along the path, and then when it gets to the end, it'll do a little bit of damage and despawn. So it's going to be an absolute cracker of an episode. I am very conscious that many of you watch it around about 5 or 6 minutes. I've looked at the analytics, I know, so I will put a time somewhere down here that you can skip to if you don't care about learning about what state patterns are and whatever, because you already know it, you just want to crack on. But for those that want to actually learn a little bit about it, I will be brief. Please stick around for the first bit. So without further ado, let's talk about state patterns. What are they? Well, if we go to Wikipedia, it gives this rather flat meaning that we can use. The state pattern is a behavioral software design pattern that allows an object to alter its behavior when its internal state changes. That doesn't really help me, does it? So what I like to think of a state pattern is a object or thing that can be in any state at any one time. Now there are exceptions to that. I know certainly you can things like parallel states and what have you, but we're not going to be looking at that. We're just going to be talking about an object. In this case, it's going to be our enemy, and what state that enemy is in. And depending on what state it's in will depend on how it acts, what it does. Right? So if we just spin over to my notepad, I've got an example here of the enemy states that we're going to be looking at. We're going to be looking at a state that could be a spawning. So this is where it's literally just coming out of the ground, as the example you saw there. It's going to be traveling along the path. It's going to potentially, it could be attacking. I think we might skip that state to start with. Potentially it could stop and attack a tower maybe. It could be despawning when it reaches the end of the path, and perhaps deal some damage, and as well as that it could be dying. So when if it has been destroyed by a turret, so that might spawn an animation. Might trigger an animation that makes it explode and then removes it from the scene. So all of those things done, how do we go about doing it? Well, luckily for us, we can take advantage of a library that already exists in Godot. Let's have a look at that now. It's called GD charts. Okay, so here we are in Godot. If I click over onto Asset Lib here and just type in the word state, if I can see it already down there, but you may have to type state to find it. Godot state charts. Okay, this is what we're after. This handles all of our state and state transitions in a kind of sort of a GUI front end way that we can look at it here and see what's going on to some degree. It has a bunch of features that we're not going to use. To be honest with you, I really don't quite understand. So if we just click on download here, and then we click so I'm going to what's that called, hide all of the subfolders, but I'm also going to uncheck the Godot state chart examples, and then I'm going to click install. Give that a few moments. It's going to say okay, our set Godot charts installed successfully. Click OK. What I will then do is, if I will go over to project settings, plugins, and you can see here it's got Godot state charts, and I'm just going to click enable there. Okay, so then I'll click on close, and what I'll do, just to be absolutely sure, is I'm just going to reload the project just to make sure everything's reloaded properly. Okay, and we're back. So what we'll need to do to start with is get ourselves an enemy that can be in these various states. So let's create let's click on plus here and create a new 3D scene. We'll just call this for now. We'll call it basic enemy. And this basic enemy is probably going to be using a resource. We covered that in the last tutorial. So take a look at that if you want to understand resources. But for now, we'll just work on some of the pieces, like what it's going to look like. So if we initially click on our assets here, In fact, I don't even think we need to do that. If we just click on search for enemy here, it will actually show us in the assets folder what's there. I'm just going to pick one that I like the reasonable look of. Let's try UFO red. Yeah, that's okay. That's absolutely fine. Now, at the moment, I don't think this needs any form of collision shape. We'll put one on in a few moments' time. But for now, let's just leave it as it is and talk about the states that this thing can be in. So in order to do that, what we're going to do here is we're going to click on the basic enemy root node, and we're going to click on plus, and we're going to look for state, and we want state chart down there. Why is it right down there? All these other ones. Okay, so we want state chart as well. This is the root of the kind of the state tree that we're going to use. And I just like to rename that to enemy state chart. I don't know why I do this, because it's fairly obvious that it's in the enemy. So what else is it going to be? It's throwing an error, a warning saying must have at least one child. And this is where things slightly might confuse you when you first start using this. You've got these different states. One's called a compound state, and one's called a parallel state. So we're only going to be looking at compound states, which means that it can only have one active state at any one time. As the parallel state suggests, that can have multiple states. To be honest with you, I haven't played with it enough. I don't understand it, so I'm not going to go near it. But that would be useful if you were doing something like running and attacking at the same time. Perhaps you might want to do that rather than having some confusing state tree that has different scenarios. But we don't need to do that because our object here is only going to be in one state at any one time. So if we just click on compound state, I don't think we need to rename that. That's going to be absolutely fine. But of course it says, well, that's great, but there's no children in it. So let's just add those children now. I think from memory, what did we say? We said one was going to be called spawning. One was going to, and I'm just clicking back up again, and then one's going to be called traveling. You'll notice that there's a new node that's appearing here for each one. I'll just talk about those in a few seconds. One's going to be called despawning. One's going to be called, I guess, dying. Did I cover them all? There was attacking, wasn't there? But we're not going to do that yet. Okay, that was all of them. Yeah. Where have you gone? There you are. So these are all of the different states. Now, what it's complaining about is that there's no initial state. Well, that's okay. So if we just click on here and then click on, compound state, and it should say, here we go, initial state on the right. We'll just click on spawning. So what's going to happen now is when this starts, it's going to launch this compound state, and it's going to say, well, I'm going to set the initial state to spawning, which is wonderful, but it's not doing anything, is it? And that's where we can start attaching some signals to the I think I'm going to put it into the basic enemy script. You could put it, these have scripts already, you could attach them maybe, but I'm going to put them in the basic enemy. So let's add a new script to this, and we'll just call it, I'm just going to call it basic enemy. All right. And then what we'll do here is we will say under spawning, what we will do is we will attach a function when the state entered is triggered. Okay, so when spawning gets entered, gets fired, starts, we'll add a method in our basic enemy script here. Here we go, that one there, and just click connect. Bang, and you can see now. So what happens is when spawning is entered, we can potentially play an animation or whatever. So for now, we'll just say print hello, because we need to get the plumbing in, don't we? Let's press Control S. Basic enemy.scene is exactly what we're after. And then let's go back to our main function and pop along grid here. If we just do this here now, well, I think we're down here somewhere. Where do we actually generate the box? Our box equals tile enemy.instantiate. There we go. So what we'll do is we'll have a reference just to get us started here. We'll just have an export var. What do you call this? Basic enemy of type pack scene. This is just to get us started, okay? And then if we go click on our main here, we should see on the inspector, we should see a link to the basic enemy there. And what we can then do, what we will want to do is move the, sorry, I need to click on that, don't I? And we'll move the basic enemy.gd to the scripts folder and the basic enemy.scene to the scenes folder, please. Thank you. And then now we should, if we click on scenes over here, we'll drag the basic enemy.scene into the basic enemy there, and then we can say basic enemy dot instantiate. Right, and if we just click on play now, it should take a second, and there it goes. And you can see now it's done something rather interesting. It's actually still moving that around. It's still using the same logic in the pop along thing, but also, more importantly, in the output you can see it's put hello. So that's a really good start. So from spawning, we want to make it move along a path. How do we go about doing that? Well, let's start talking about path 3D and path follow 3D.
The next day.
Right, well, what better way than to talk about path 3D than to actually just show you what it is. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to my basic enemy here, and I'm going to right click, and I'm going to add a child node, and it's going to be called a path 3D. And I am conscious, by the way, that of course we've been adding paths to our system, but this is something slightly different. This is a path 3D here, and that's what we're going to start with. And what I'll show you here, the key thing that you'll notice over here is it's got this curve 3D. This is something we're going to have to create manually, but what I'll just quickly show you is what you can actually do up here. You can see you've got these select points, select control points, and add point, and so on. When you click, when you've selected path 3D, this little selection will come up here. So what I can actually do is I can press add points here onto our grid, and I think if I click this one, it joins the last two up. And that looks marvellous, doesn't it? And now we have a path that could theoretically be followed. And I think it's the control points, this one here, where you can do things like start pulling these out. So actually, rather than make it such a harsh corner turn, you can kind of adjust these, and you can pull these things around. Then you can. So that must be a starting one, because it's only got one. Only got one control, and we can go back here, select the points, click here. Move that one around. You can see, even though it says it's joined them, it hasn't really. It's just kind of brought them together. And I think if you do that now, there you go, create another one, and so on and so on. And that's wonderful. The one problem we have here that you can see is that it's done it in a right old higgledy-piggledy way. It's kind of like that. Really, we want ours to be completely flat. So what you would do, if we were to do it this way, which we're not, so we'll say OK here, we'd press 7 to go into top view, and then add our path 3D. Click OK, and then just start adding points like this, like something like, and then we'll just close it up. Is that one? Close curve. And now if we look, you see they're all on a flat plane. But we're not going to do any of this manually like this. We're going to do it via code. So what we'll do is we'll actually delete this, and we'll say if we click here and then do clear. So that's completely empty. All right, and what we'll do in our basic enemy script here is we'll create we could do it in the path gen. Let's do it in the basic enemy to start with, and we can talk about where we might want to do it later on. But what we're going to do is we're going to create a curve 3D, and then we'll assign that to this path 3D here. So in our system here, we can put this on ready. Let's do this in ready, so it's good to go. We'll say curve 3D, C3D or something like that. Well, yes, let's just have up here. We'll have var curve 3D, 3D of type curve 3D. And then here we'll say curve 3D equals curve 3D dot new, and then we're going to say for I in path gen instance dot get path root. Is that right? Yeah, colon curve 3D dot add point, and then we just literally we're going to say vector 3 I dot x comma 0 comma I dot y. Right, that will then add that point into our basically create a path that matches a curve 3D that matches our actual path. So that's nice and easy, isn't it? So now what we can now do is actually generate a path follow 3D, which will allow the object to actually be on that path and actually go across it. If I just show you now, back to the 3D here, if I now, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a child node here called a path follow 3D. There it is. And I'm actually going to put the enemy UFO here underneath it, like so. Hopefully that's all. It might have a position. Let's just put that up a little touch. We're 0.25, something like that, just so it's off the ground. So the path follow 3D, you'll see it's got a couple of things here: progress and progress ratio. Progress ratio is between 0 and 1, and progress is the actual distance. Now, conveniently for us, the distance is actually the number of because each of the tiles is 1 meter. The progress will match the actual size, so that's going to be a useful fact later on we can use. It may get a little bit complicated if you didn't do that. If it was 2 meters per tile, you may have to think about that when you're doing your following. But let's quickly just do this again. Let's go to 7 here, and let's just create a new curve just to show you how that would work. New curve 3D, and we'll just add some points. All right, and then we'll close the curve off. And then if we go back to here, and I think now if I go to my path follow 3D, you'll notice initially it's there, but I think if I just do progress ratio, you'll now see that it follows that around. Follows it all the way around, you see. Now we don't actually want the progress ratio. We'll be using this, but I've noticed it's very difficult to, it's not too bad actually on this time, but it's very difficult to, hang on, that one, to actually control it here. Yeah, it gets a little bit fiddly. The one thing I would like to turn off is loop. So we want to turn that off because this isn't going to start again when it hits the end. It's going to stop. So we just turn off the loop just to make sure that doesn't happen. And of course, we need to go back here and actually delete the curve 3D. Clear. Am I recording? Yes. Okay. So we're in a good place. Path 3D is empty. That's interesting that that's over there now. Is that a problem? I don't think so. I think it's just got a little messed up with its issues there, but that's okay. So what we'll do in our script here is we'll say $path 3D dot curve, that's annoying, equals curve 3D. So that's set us all up now. So and what we'll do as well, I think if we say $path 3D, path follow 3D, yeah, dot is it position ratio, progress, sorry, progress. We can set progress ratio here equals 0. So that's going to start us off bang on the middle. Now what I'd like to do just to get this to stop this pop along grid doing it, I think what I'll do now is literally just make it instantiate like that. Okay, so if we just take these, just get rid of all. Yeah, I'll just comment it all out for now. Let's just. I want to do Control K. Control K. There we go. Right. So it's now all it's going to do is basically enemy.instantiate. So let's give this a run. Let's see what happens. Sorry if you. That should just pop up now. It doesn't. Let's take a look at why. Sorry. Fairly obviously, I need to put add child. Can't type tonight. Box. How's that? Okay. Now that should be okay because everything should be relevant now, relative to the target. There we go. So that's popped up. Well, that's kind of cool. It's there, and it's found the correct place, which I guess is a good start. So the curve 3D is probably very good. So what we can now do is we in our basic enemy script. Basic enemy here. What we'll do now, on spawning state entity, you'll notice, so we're printing hello. Now, let's very quickly do a spawn on this. So what I'll do is I'll create a new animation player, just to get it to do something, right? So animation player, create, okay, and then we will create a new animation. Sorry if this is a little bit quick. If you'd like a tutorial on this, that's absolutely fine. And we'll do that. 1 second is cool. That's called spawn. And what we then do is if we go to our enemy UFO red and click on this little key here, I'm not interested in creating a reset track or Bezier curves. Just click on create, and then what we'll do is we'll click there, and then I think if we do that, click there, move it over to the right, and then right click, insert. No, sorry, I thought it was not duplicate key. Duplicate keys. there. So now that should, I hope, that'll say 1 on. If you look over here, you can see this says to 1 there, and that should be 1 as well. So we'll just set these to 0 there. Right. So now if I do that, I'm hoping if we look to the right, as we press play, that didn't quite work over here. That might just be the key. Let's just go back to 3D. Click on play. I noticed this last time. It's gone from 1 to 0. Okay, so let's just start this again. 0 on that one, and then click on that. I'm obviously messing that up, and do 1 there, and 1, 1, 1. Now if I press play. Okay, cool. So what we'll do in our spawn function here is just say $animation dot play, and I like this. It actually gives you the animations that are available, so that's really cool. I really like that about Godot. You don't have to guess a lot of the time. It'll tell that for you. There you go. So now one of the problems I noticed, I don't know if you spotted that, but it actually flickered. And I thought earlier on I'd fix this, but no, it actually starts off full size. Now I think the way you fix that is if you go to our 3D here. Well, it doesn't have to be there. If you just go to the animation, make sure that's at the 0 there is what I think, and then set the scale here, which is also 0. So I'm not sure why that's happening. For now, I'm going to leave it. I will work on that, because what I ended up doing was disabling it briefly and then enabling it, which I hate. I hate doing that. But that is very much showing 0 there, isn't it? And if I just pull that across, you can see it's moving it. It's moving it there to 0.5. So I don't understand quite why that's flickering in. If anybody knows, and now it doesn't. Did you see that? Now it doesn't do it. I don't know if that's a bug, whether it's just it's absolutely fine now. Okay. Sorry, folks. I don't quite know why that is, but we've got an animation, and you can see now that's beautiful. So what we'll now do in our compound states here, we've got traveling. And we need to go to the traveling state. So under spawning, what we're going to do is we're going to create a transition. And you can see it's got a transition here. And we'll just rename this to traveling, like so. And it's going to ask us over here on the right, well, what state do you want to go to? And we're going to go to the traveling state and say OK.
5 minutes later.
Right, I had to pause there. Apologies, I've lost my train of thought. My son came in and had to print some stuff off. Right, we are going to create an event here. Okay, so what we'll call it is something like to traveling. To traveling, like that. Don't worry about the guards. We don't need to worry about that for this session. That's quite useful. You can add some extra rules. I'd say don't do it unless certain things are in place. So we've got this to traveling event, and if we go back to our script, what we can do is we can say $enemy, not pound, $enemy state chart dot send event to traveling. Okay, and that's gonna trigger this to traveling here, and it's then going to put us in the traveling state. All right, and then what we can now do, let's just finish this off. Oh, and by the way, at the moment we don't need the process, do we? So let's get rid of that. Now what we can do is under the traveling here, we'll add a signal to say state entered. Let's just connect that. Yes, it's going to be basic enemy. Click connect. Let's just say print hello. So, right, okay. And so now what's going to do is going to play the animation spawn, and then it's going to go straight to traveling. Now I think that's a problem because we actually need to say await $animation player dot animation finished. There you go. Animation finished, and I think then you just await animation.player. I think that's what we need to do, and then send it event to traveling. Let's just see if that works. I think that might be correct. Let's just see how we go. Right, so if we click on here now, and there you go. Did you see? So it's actually done that. It's waiting for it to spawn, and then it's got to that state. We're doing really well. This is good. Now we're traveling along, or rather, we've entered the traveling state. All right, and so we're here now, and it's printing hello. That's not really what we need to do. What we need to have on our enemy is a kind of position. So let's just have this here. We'll have var, and it's called on the path 3D. Sorry, path follow 3D. It's called progress. I already knew that, didn't I? We went through that earlier on. So we're going to have a var enemy progress of type float. Right, and then we'll just somewhere here. We'll just say, in fact, you know what we can say there? We can say there equals 0. That's fine. And then what we'll do, rather than use the traveling, on state entered, it also has one that's called state processing, right? And that there has that runs every frame. So let's just connect that to our basic enemy. Click connect. And now this is going to run every frame. Let's just quickly have a speed variable here. This is definitely something that we'll want to put into a resource, right? We'll want to resource this stuff. But for now, we'll have var enemy speed equals 1. Right. Okay. So let's make that of type float as well. Float, like so. And then in our physics here, we'll say enemy progress plus equals delta times enemy speed. It is, yes, delta. There we go. And then what we can then say is that'd be there, not progress ratio, just progress. Okay. Equals enemy progress. And I think that will work. Now, it obviously hasn't got any checks at the minute. It's not going to do anything when it reaches the end, but let's have a quick look. And away it goes. And let's just follow it. It's too slow, isn't it? But let's just see if it goes away. It goes the right way. It's looking good. Right, I'm going to make this a lot faster. So let's make the speed 6. And that'll give it some oomph, won't it? So it's going to spawn. That's a bit quicker. It's going to go around. It's doing a great job. So that conversion to curve 3D worked beautifully. It's going to get to the end and stop. Now, what's actually happening now, I think, is that enemy progress is increasing. So what we need to do is we just need to say here, if enemy progress is greater than get path route dot size, then let's just print stop. Print stop. Okay, that's not again. That's still not going to do anything. But let's just make sure that works. And while I'm at it, I'm actually going to disconnect this on travel state entered. Let's make sure I'm on the right one. Yeah, traveling. That's it. So let's just disconnect all here. Yep. And then we can delete that because we're not actually doing anything when it enters. We're just moving around. We could put something there, but we're not right now, are we? That's an interesting one. Look, away it goes. And if we just keep an eye on the text on the bottom left. Stop. Perfect. Right. Okay. So what we would now do is we would have another one here called despawning. So that one atomic state there. I think that's meant to say dying, by the way. We're not going to hit that state today, are we? So we're going to put this in here and we're going to say to dying, right? So we'll click on here. Sorry, click on 3D. That thing isn't there when you're in script mode. Click on here and that's going to be called to despawning. And it's going to grumble because it doesn't know what state to go to. So you tell it to despawning. And we'll create an event type called to despawning. Now, one of the things I've realized is, and this is just a little tip if you're using this first time, is if you want to go to despawning from traveling, you need to have a transition there. If you wanted to go, say, from... I'm just purely from example. If you want to go from spawning to despawning straight away, you need another one of these transitions because that send event is only listening for events in that state. I hope that makes sense. I really came unstuck with this. I was getting very confused because I thought calling that would work regardless of what state it's in, but I don't think it does. I think that's only going to trigger when you're in the traveling state and you call... to despawning. I've spelled that right, haven't I? There you go. To despawning, right? So, so we'll go back to our script here, and we won't say that. We'll say, let's just copy that there. You'll notice I'm using the dollars here. I should probably not, but we're not calling them multiple times, are we? To despawning. and that's not going to do anything, but it will stop this running. So we should let's just prove that. Let's just prove that. Let's just print reached end there. We should probably keep those comments in there for each one. Right, here we go. It's going to rattle around. It should only print that once, I'm hoping, and then it'll put it onto despawning, which doesn't at the minute do anything. Surprise, surprise. Yep, reached end. There you go. And you can see it's no longer printing that every frame because it's sent the event to go to the despawning stage. So let's stop that, and we will create a let's create a new animation animation player here. Can we duplicate this? If we can, I must admit I don't know. Duplicate, beautiful, and we'll call this despawn. No, thank you. And so for this one, if we just click over here, we want that to be 111, and that to be 000. Oh, that's done it. Okay, lovely. And then we will in our script here, we need to add a new listener on despawning, don't we? We need to add a new state entered signal connect. So it's in that script. Click here. So this is going to be, we'll say $animation player play despawn. I kind of feel that maybe we need to have another step before this called generate deal damage or something like that. But for now, let's do this. Let's get it go round. Can you imagine if they were that quick, your turrets would never destroy them, would they? And there we go. There's a little bit of a delay there, I noticed, when it changes. A little bit of a delay. And I'm not putting that in there. So it's curiously, there is a bit of a delay. I'll have a little look into why that is. But it seems to be working fine, right? It's still there. The end is still there. So what we want to do is similar to what we did a minute ago, where we await the animation finish. There we go. Okay, and then we'll do that here. And then we'll just say Q3. And that will actually delete it. Right. But what we might want to do as well here is just say hashtag deal some damage. But we don't have any values or anything like that to actually be able to do any damage right now, do we? So if we click on play again, and we're not going to notice any difference here. But the point is that the not only is the enemy disappeared, it's also been removed from the tree. So let's do one more thing just to finish this off. I'm going to actually remove all this code now. That there for pop along. This is how I like to code, by the way. I know it's not everybody's way of doing things, but I like to build sort of building blocks. Take stuff back, have a little play, make it work, and away you go. So with this would be a wave. So let's just do for come on, type properly. For I in, I'm going to just do I in 20. Does that work? And then we say await. Get tree dot create timer 2 seconds dot timeout. All right, and then we'll say var box equals basic enemy add child to the box, and that's going to create, guess what, 20 enemies. They're going to be way too fast right now. Let's just slow them down a bit, shall we? In the basic enemy, let's just slow them down. Click on 4. Let's make it 2. Let's have a look, see how this goes. Okay, you should start seeing them. Here we go. Look at this. They're moving across our path. They're doing a good job. Now, they don't bump into each other. They have no collisions, which is a good thing, I think. Otherwise, they'll start bouncing all over the place. But you can see they're kind of crisscrossing on occasion, like there, which is a little bit disconcerting. I think, yeah, it's not great. But for now, we're not going to worry too much about that. And I honestly do not know why it flicks in and out. There you go. It wants disappearing. See, it sort of waits there for a second, you notice, and then it disappears. I'm curious what that's all about. I think changing states is it's not instantaneous. Don't know why. I'll have a little look into that. All right. So there you can see that they're all finishing off, and that is the end of this tutorial. Thank you for sticking around and staying this long. I hope that's been helpful, made sense to you, and that you're keen to look at the next episode, which is going to be, hold on to your hats. It's going to be, we're going to start putting some turrets down. I think initially at least we'll work on the drag and drop feature of a very basic block, and then we'll start working on actual turrets, putting them down, and then getting them to fire at this wave of enemies. So until next time, thank you so much for your support. Thank you so much, and I look forward to seeing you then. Cheers now. Bye-bye.